Hey guys, my name is Phil Day, and today I'm going to be answering the most Googled poker questions.
Poker. How to play.
How to play. I think the answer is different for everyone. If you've never played the game before, how to play involves Googling how to play poker and then reading what the cards mean, what the hand strengths are and stuff like that. If you know how to play the game, then how to play poker, the question changes a bit and there's more like strategy to it. It's such a broad question. That the answer, I get you, that's it. It depends on where you're at in the game. If you've never played at all, ever playing poker, the answer is just to learn how the game runs, how betting works and what hand strengths are.
Where would you go to learn this stuff?
YouTube. I think like learning it in a video format with like where there's a video showing you, what the hand strengths are, what betting actions are, how positions work. If none of those things make sense, then watch the video and they will.
The second question is poker, how to win.
Poker, how to win. That's the golden question, right? How to win. The simple answer is to play against people that are worse than you or get lucky. You want to get as good as you can strategically at the game. Once you're good strategically, play against as bad opponents as you can at as high a stakes as possible. And that's how to win.
Where do you find the bad opponents?
It's another golden question. But really, the best place to find bad opponents is live scenarios, because most often the weakest opponents play against are recreational players, and those people will want to have some sort of experience with poker, whether that means going and they're just expecting to lose their money or they're not bothered. When you're playing against other people who are really skilled at the game, then the win rates become much smaller.
Third question, poker, how to play simple.
How to play simple. And I think the answer to that question is, what does your hand want to do? And that can be really complicated or not very complicated, but on a base level of do I want to bet with my hand? And then I think that question can be split into two of if I'm going to bet, am I bluffing or am I value betting? And sometimes you want to bet, sometimes you want to check. But I think the first question is what do I want to do with my hand?
Poker, how to deal.
How to deal? I don't know the answer to that one. I've never dealt at poker. But yeah, no, I guess I know loads of people do it, don't they? Loads.
I've never done it.
You've never done it.
So how do you deal? You get two.
So the game's pretty simple in that sense. It's two cards go to each player. For Hold'em, there are different formats. They have different cards, but for Hold'em, which is the most popular one, 2 cards to each player. There's then a round of betting, which I'll let you look up if you don't know what that means. And once that round is done, then we get 3 streets. So the first street contains 3 cards, which is called the flop. The 3 cards go out. There's another round of betting. Then there's one more card, which is a turn. So there's 4 cards on the board, 1 more round of betting. And then the last street, which is 1 more card, is called river, 1 more round of betting. And then at the end of that, if there's still more than 1 player in the hand, then it's whoever's got the best hand that wins. But if across all of those streets, so pre-flop, flop, turn and river, if there's only 1 player left, they win the pot no matter what hand they've got, and that's where the bluffing comes in.
Poker, how to count cards.
Poker, how to count cards. So I think that's a conflation between poker and blackjack. There's not really a card counting strategy in poker. There are some elements to strategy where we use cards, but you're not counting off the dealer. I think that's what they're thinking that you can do. They might be asking about casino poker.
I think they're asking if the fallacy of you see in movies where there's Rain Man, where he's autistic but he can memorise stuff really well.
Yeah.
He goes into the casino and he's looking at all the hands and he's figuring out exactly where all the cards are.
Oh, I see.
I suppose is that actually possible?
No, not in poker.
I suppose impossible in online poker, but maybe in person.
No, you couldn't. There's no format to count cards in poker. Basically what we do is we narrow down based on our opponent's actions what sort of hands we think they'll have, but there's no way to know what they'll have from the dealer. The way that happens in blackjack is very different. It's done on information. So I guess in hindsight, when I think about that, in poker we can make deductions on the type of hands our opponent will have based on the other cards that we've seen, but the only cards that you see in poker are the ones on the board, because when other opponents fold their hands, you don't see them, so you can't count them. Does that make sense?
Poker, how to calculate pot odds.
When you're calculating pot odds, it can get a little bit complicated, but it's essentially about, and I'd recommend that you Google it for the mathsy bit, but it's essentially how big the pot is and how much your opponent has bet, and then using those bits of information, what sort of equity you need to continue in the hand in theory. And basically pot odds are what equity I would need in theory to continue in the hand in that spot. A very simple one would be if the pot is 100 and you've bet 50, then I have to call 50 to win a pot of 200 total. So what are the odds that I can win that?
Do you ever use calculators?
Yeah, so it's against the rules to use calculators as you're going. Well, not a calculator, but like sims, which is like the advanced version of a calculator. I kind of know equities and stuff like that as I'm going, and even some of the sites will have like equities on there. So if I go all in against you on the flop, it will tell us what both of our equities are. So you figure them out with time. But yeah, like as a pro player, we use sims, and we use like analytical tools to help us decide what sort of hands we want to do what action with, and stuff like that. And that should be done away from the game. That's a whole nother cheating thing if you're using it at the same time as you're playing, because you're like basically not a human at that point, you're just a robot.
Poker, how to play AK.
How to play a...
No, I don't even know what AK means.
Ace King.
Oh, okay. No.
Yeah, how...
So how would you play Ace King?
Well, yeah, how would I play Ace King? I mean, Ace King's a really strong hand. That's one thing you've got on your side. If you've got Ace King, it's a very strong hand. The answer to how do we play it is too broad of a question, because it depends on so many factors, like how many chips have you got, what position are you in, what have your opponents done, things like that. But very simply, if you have Ace King, you can play it really aggressively. It's a very strong hand. Like we said, it has good equity against so many hands. And another property of it is that it blocks the best hands opponents can have. So because we hold an ace and a king, it's less likely that our opponents are going to have aces or kings or strong hands like that. So
how would you bet to conceal that you've got that good hand?
So what we do is, as we start getting into more advanced strategy with poker, is we'll have a range of hands that we do certain actions with. And like I said, if my range of hands is doing it, then you don't know if I've got ace king, or I might also have like sevens, or I might have like 9, 10. And so as long as I'm doing it with a range of hands, then it's not possible for you to adjust to that. And so the answer is I would do the same with ace king as I would do with some other hands, but I wouldn't do everything the same way I would do ace king with.
Look at how to play suited connectors.
Oh.
I don't even know what suited connectors means again, so explain what suited connectors means.
So a suited connector typically is like 5, 6 of hearts, or 7, 8 of hearts, and the reason that people struggle with these hands, they perform really well, and people that have played the game a lot will use them often because of the properties that the hands have, which we won't delve to, but they're good hands to use as kind of like that bluffing portion that we were talking about. With ace king, we might have some fun. They're hard to play. You can often run into really good hands with them if you're trying to do too much. So the answer is, if you have 5, 6 suited, you want to play them sometimes, and you want to mainly bet when you have good equity. So if we have a flush draw or a straight draw, then we can play aggressively with that hand. But what we don't want to do is play the hand pre-flop, see a board that's not even to do with us, and then just put in loads of money, because we're going to struggle if we're doing that all the time with those.
You'd look to bet quite strong on the suited.
In the right scenarios, yeah, in the right scenarios. So that's what I'm saying. Like, there are times where we would want to bet strongly with them, even as a bluff, but there are other times where it's just right to like not put money in the pot and to give up. But it's not, I guess the question to poker is knowing when is right and when is wrong. So.
But how to play middle pair?
A middle pair, for example, would be, like we spoke about in the last video, was the Queen 9-3 board. The person that has 9-10 has middle pair, because they have the middle pair on the board. How to play it, as always, depends, which is such an annoying answer, I know, for the video, but it always depends. But I would say a good sort of like overall approach to it is to play it quite passively, because when you have these sorts of hands, you have some showdown equity, but we also find it really hard to kind of get money off worse hands, because our hand isn't that strong. We don't beat lots of things that they're going to call, but also like we can call some bets if they're going to bluff. So a middle pair is a nice hand to play passively for the most part, to call some bets, try not to put too much money in ourselves. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Shout out to Jack behind the camera for asking the questions. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, subscribe, and check out my Twitch, which will be linked below. Other than that, I hope you're well, and peace.